Hey, hey,
Welcome back.
you got adequate caffeination levels?
One sec. Mm, oh well.
Can you remake me admin or host or whatever?
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
All
Excellent.
right.
Gotcha.
Hey, Josiah, if you want to throw up our 10 key values for folks to sort of peruse as they join the meeting, that might be good. Todd, welcome. I just responded to your email. I'm sorry, I just saw it. We will have a Zoom recording of this. Um, I don't really, I don't really have another way of setting it up at the last minute. I'm sorry.
Hey, no problem. Glad to be here.
All right, let me just. I'm gonna change my name. James and Josiah. I put secretary after mine. If you guys want to put like comma and CC so folks know who you are, that might be good. Jason, welcome.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Good, thanks. There's Amy.
Oh, is that Todd Boyle? Goodness.
I'm still alive.
How are you doing, Todd? Oh my God.
Yep.
Oh
Where
yeah,
you live? Where
Todd.
you living now, Todd?
Oh, I'm in Udine.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I
Well,
moved
good
here
to
in
see you.
2016, and I got this. I got a tear down house out there and the other side of the yard, and I'm living here. It's a converted garage here. It's a man cave, all my toys.
Nice, nice. Well, I let's make sure we trade contact info, and I want to come say hi next time I'm down in the area.
That'd be great.
Good to see you.
Yeah,
No
Todd is
problem.
like our AV guru down here. He's like the dedicated video guy for all demonstrations, sort of on his.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, he just kind of stepped up and has done that for a
Well, Todd
community.
and I have known each other for over 20 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, my phone rang, but I don't know who it is.
Esme, welcome. I was encouraging all the SCC members to maybe put SCC after their name. Um, Welcome. For those of you that just joined us, we're for those of you who just joined us, we're sort of letting a slideshow roll that displays our 10 key values. We will get started probably at like 11:02.
Morning, everybody.
Hey, Amy.
I'm going to mute so you can't hear me gulping coffee.
Okay. And then I was encouraging the SCC members to maybe throw SCC after their name.
I just looked at my profile edit and it wants me to sign in, but I can't figure out what it wants me to sign into since I'm already here.
Interesting. I know. I was got to juggle between a few different Zoom accounts too.
Yeah, I'll try to work that out in time for our next get-together. But in the meantime, I'm happy to tell people that I'm on the FCC until winter of next year. Hoping we'll have a bunch of new people stepping forward or interested in that after we're done today. That would be so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we will.
Because as Connor's always saying, we can't just have what does Connor say? Graybeards. We can't just have graybeards. We got to have a good cross section of people.
Yeah. Connor, one of our IT helpers, like he's more than that, but he helps. He just reminded me to remind you that this meeting is being recorded. We do want to be able to share some highlights with some of the membership who may not be able to make this 2-hour window on a Saturday. So we're hoping to make this some of Butch's comments, maybe some of Kshama's comments available to the membership afterwards.
Why don't you stop the recording now and then start it when the meeting starts, and then it'll eliminate this 5 minute of chit chat.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just gonna probably end up trimming it. I didn't want to forget recording it, so and when I scheduled the meeting, I set it up to automatically record because I didn't want to make sure I didn't forget.
We love having the short-term memory of a goldfish.
I know. It's like you want to walk the fine line between not harassing people by sending them tons of emails, but also communicating enough so they remember, so that they have the link easily accessible. I'm trying to make it easy for folks without inundating them with too many emails. All right. I think Butch has joined us. Kshama will probably be joining us later. It's 11:03. As folks join us, and I'm sorry, you guys, I should try to change the settings so that we don't, if someone who's the co-host can maybe turn off the chimes for when people are being admitted, that would be good.
Also, can you turn on the chat? Is there anything wrong with that, or what do you think?
Yeah, well, yes. The chat, let's take a look at that before we get started. Yes, I want you all to be able to talk to each other. Let me go in there. Participants can chat with the meeting group chat. There you go. You should be able to message everyone and individuals. That being said, I should say, let's make sure that we keep all comments sort of respectful. James Dashel on the state coordinating committee is volunteered to sort of monitor the chat and be sort of our vibes check person. So please don't make him mute you. We've got Amy Sachs is with us. She's with the state coordinating committee. Amy's gonna join us a little bit later, talk about fundraising and building our sort of our war chest for 2026. And then, yeah, I guess real quick, I'll just go over the agenda for today. We try to make it worth the membership's while. We're trying to keep it somewhat short. It's just a 2-hour program. We're going to keep it punchy and hopefully interesting. We've got 2 great speakers lined up for you. Butch Ware, as you may know, was our vice presidential candidate in 2024 and is now running for governor in California, already running a really great campaign, and I think is a great representative of the Green Party message. I'm really excited to have him here with us. And then later we've invited Kshama Sawant from Workers Strike Back, who's also running for Congress on a similar platform as what we all stand for. Yeah, there she is, and Todd's camera there. So I guess the theme of the day is solidarity, right? We've got California represented. We're going to have Washington represented. We're all here in Oregon. Let's build some West Coast solidarity today, support these candidates, and start thinking about what we're going to be doing in 2026. So we'll give Butch a half hour to talk. If there's time, we may open up for questions. We'll just see how it goes, y'all. All right. I want to respect his time, not ask too much of him. I told Kshama she'll have the floor for 15 minutes at 11:45 as our special guest. In the second hour, I'm going to have a Green Party member give us a quick Oregon legislative update. It should take about 5 minutes just to inform you all on what's been going on in Salem and in Oregon politics and maybe things as Greens might want to get involved in. Then we've got a couple people interested in running for governor here in Oregon. We know Butch is running for governor in California, but who is going to run for governor in Oregon in 2026? We need to figure that out. And we have a couple guests with us at noon, shortly after noon, that are going to tell us why they're interested in getting into that race. And then I don't want it all to be passive listening. I'm going to give the membership an opportunity to contribute, talk to each other, have a conversation, and I want us all to hear each other's thoughts on recruiting and vetting candidates for next year. Where are we going to find candidates? What kind of candidates are we looking for? What's the plan? Because we need a plan if we're going to win. So that's the agenda. I'm going to kick it over to Josiah Dean, who's going to open with a land acknowledgement. Josiah has been an elected Green himself, a mayor in Defer, and is now serving on our state coordinating committee. I'm really pleased to have Josiah involved with the Pacific Green Party. Josiah, I'll pass it over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Justin. So just a real quick run through through our land acknowledgement. I'll just kind of read the screens, but feel free to take in what all you can. So in the spirit of truth and equity, it is with gratitude and humility that we acknowledge that we are gathered on sacred homelands. So homelands include the 9 federally recognized tribes in what we now call Oregon, including the Burns Paiute tribe, Confederated tribes of Coos, Lower Umpqua, and Siuslaw, Coquille Indian tribe, and Bronze, the Klamath tribes, the Confederated tribes of Silitz, Confederated tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation, and the Confederated tribes of Warm Springs. And that is not to make light of all the other Native communities who have historically made their homes throughout the region, but may not be federally recognized. So we also recognize that this land was taken by violence and that exploitation and injustice persists in the system of laws and governments, in the influence of big money in an antiquated electoral system, and in latent attitudes and prejudices against historically marginalized and oppressed people. Many of these persistent behaviors that people historically in power may not be aware of. Latent inherited patterns of thought and action that ignore, diminish, or trivialize the contributions of Indigenous, women, BIPOC, and other marginalized and/or oppressed people. So it is our intention to restore and work both within the community and within ourselves to recognize those attitudes, working collaboratively to restore balance on Earth and amongst ourselves. We will not cast aside or minimize those voices when they point to latent discrimination. We hereby commit to listening with intention and openness to value the participation of historically oppressed communities. We acknowledge that all marginalized voices and oral traditions have their unique wisdom to help solve the problems we face. So we take this time to thank the ancestors, spirit, God, or just simple kindness for guidance in ensuring that our thoughts and intentions during this meeting reflect mutual respect and compassion. All right, back to you, Justin.
Thanks for doing that. And then I guess I also want to point out that, we invite the membership to go sort of beyond land acknowledgements. We want to go beyond just performative words, right? And put some of these ideas into action. So as always, at the conclusion of the convention, I will send a follow-up to you all, and we may include some links to encourage further reading, or maybe some YouTube videos. There's been a good one that's been shared in the past by some Indigenous activists. So we really encourage you to start thinking beyond just the words of the land acknowledgement, and how can we sort of honor that in practice. Thank you so much, Josiah. All right. So we're at 11:11. We're a little bit early. I'm not sure if Professor Ware is available. Jason, maybe how about I let you introduce Jason Call, by the way, folks, was Jill Stein's campaign manager. Jason ran for Congress himself in Washington. He's really stepped up to help the Green Party, and is currently working on Butch Ware's campaign. So Jason, how about I pass it to you, and then I'm going to let you introduce your candidate. I'm going to ask you to unmute. I'm just going to go ahead.
Did it work? Am I unmuted yet?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Well, Oregon Pacific Greens, it is a pleasure to be with you here this morning. And I just want to acknowledge the hard work that the Green Party is doing in Oregon. And I really appreciate and resonate with the theme of solidarity with this campaign, particularly West Coast solidarity, because as Dr. Ware will talk about, the West Coast is going to be the leading edge of the revolution here. I feel it coming. Washington, Oregon, California is, people are ripe for change, and we often have joked around about Cascadia, right? Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia splitting off. Let's do our own thing. And I think that there's with Northern California, but there is a real culture of West Coast solidarity here, and I'm very excited to build on it. And I can't say enough about the opportunity that we have in front of us to really take things from a gubernatorial race in California to leading a national movement that people are absolutely ready for, absolutely ripe for. Stories coming out day after day after day about the systemic oppression that we have all, so many of us, and I don't necessarily mean people in this room, but our country has been turning a blind eye to. And it goes, Gaza has put a fine point, and a very brutal fine point, on what has been happening sort of systemically in this country and around the world for decades and decades and centuries. And I think we have been very conditioned in this country to look away from those injustices for our own comfort. But people are really waking up to this. They are recognizing that their comfort comes from the exploitation and oppression of other peoples, and it has gone on historically in this country for centuries. So it is really time, and we are to use the cliche, we really are the ones that we have been waiting for. If nobody else is going to do this, it is, and obviously within the establishment, we have seen time and time again that nobody else is going to do this. It really is time for us to gather people in solidarity and say, this is what humanity is supposed to look like. This is how we are supposed to take care of each other. This is how we are supposed to take care of our natural world and be in stewardship of our lands, and rather than be owners and exploiters. So that is what, when I read the Green Party platform, That is what comes out to me. And having worked with the Democratic Party for a couple of decades and really coming to the recognition that that party is not ever going to change, and having also been involved in the Green Party in the early 90s, not in an organizational sense, but I knew what the Green Party was. I really fell back to the Green Party and looked at that platform and I said, this is really where we need to be. And we ran with that platform. We put some really fine details on it for the Stein campaign. And Butch, let me talk about Butch now. Butch added so much to that campaign in terms of historical knowledge, in terms of cultural knowledge, and what Butch brings to the table here is a capacity to speak to this moment in a way that is, and I find myself inspired less and less frequently these days, right? But when Butch came to the campaign, I instantly said, "Oh, this is a movement leader here. This is somebody that I can get behind, and I can put my whole body and soul into what Butch brings to the table." So we are looking to grow the movement in California, which will take hold like wildfire, but in a good way across the country. And we really have an opportunity to transform this country. And in the country, we will have the opportunity to transform the world. So it does start with us. And I've said enough now, but I appreciate the time to speak because I really am truly inspired by this moment. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Professor Butch Ware to speak to you about the campaign and why it's important to get behind it and why the solidarity is needed.
So, peace and power, everyone. Thanks for the great introduction, Jason. And it's been an honor, getting called into service, tagged into action by you and Jill, and then to continue in that fight together here on the West Coast. So I was given 30 minutes, but I'm not going to take all 30. I'm going to maybe take 10 to 15 and then open things up to questions, because I'd really like for this to be as much a build and a strategy and an organizing opportunity as an opportunity to kind of talk through where we are and how we get to where we're going. But I will accept the invitation to speak in the spirit in which it was given. And say a few words about how I read the moment. And I was actually motivated in organizing my thoughts for this talk by the tagline in the email, "This is how we win." I think that to start, it's incredibly important that we center winning elections in this moment. When I spoke to the Green Party National Steering Committee, I said, with all due respect, this is a party that for too long has been happy just to be on the field. And that if we actually see ourselves as the best chance to pull humanity back from the precipice of ecological disaster, from the precipice of nuclear war, from the precipice of capitalist exploitation and extraction of everything that is good in life for the benefit of a tiny fraction of people, then we need to be playing to win, not to be on the field. This can't be just about winning issues. This has to be about winning elections. This can't just be about shaping an Overton window of discourse. This actually has to be about power. Because what we have learned over these last 22 months of genocide in Gaza, for those that may not have known it before, as Kwame Ture put it, he said, nonviolent resistance is predicated upon your enemy having a conscience. The problem is America has none. Aimé Césaire, Frantz Fanon reminded us that colonialism is not a thinking body endowed with rational faculties. It responds only to superior force. Now, as a party that is rooted in nonviolence, we need to claim that force as political power. And that means that we need to be playing to win. So all of our thinking and strategy should come from how we assume the position that is now essentially being handed to us after what we were able to build in the 2024 Steinware campaign on the shoulders of 4 decades of green organizing and green activism, which is we have been able to position ourselves as the third largest political party in the United States of America, and the only one with electoral ballot access across the country that isn't a wholly owned subsidiary of APAC, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, and Boeing. We are the party that is best positioned to respond to this crisis in American capitalism, that is best positioned to respond to the reemergence of oligarchy and fascism in their most naked forms. But in order to do that, we have to transform this party into a party that shows up for elections and is trying to stay on ballots, to a party that is actually prepared to serve as the principal opposition party in the United States of America. This has to become that party. So that's the preface. I think that I would start the substance of the conversation with just a few, kind of words about myself. Many of you may have heard me talk about these things during the campaign, but I was brought into my own personal faith tradition of Islam and also into the Black radical tradition in which all my political activism is rooted when I read the autobiography of Malcolm X when I was 15 years old. That book changed my life, changed my consciousness, brought me into the faith tradition that, kind of organizes my personal life and a lot of my community life. But it was also my indoctrination into the Black radical political tradition. And we have lots of valuable lessons to learn from that Black radical political tradition about how to respond to this moment and become that revolutionary opposition party. But I want to start my comments tonight by saying that when I first read the autobiography of Malcolm X at age 15, I read it cover to cover in one night, and I wanted what Malcolm had when he at the end of that book. So I went out and I got an English translation of the Quran from my public school library the next day, and I read that cover to cover the next night. And one thing and I was a Muslim before the end of the week. I converted before the week was out. That was the beginning of a lot of consciousness raising for me. But something that was really deeply striking to me in that Quran was that all of the heroes of that book were anti-imperialists. Abraham was fighting the most powerful imperial tyrants on earth in his time, which was Nimrod. Moses and Aaron were standing 10 toes down against the most powerful imperialist in their time, Pharaoh. John and Jesus were being martyred for having the audacity to stand up to the Roman Empire. And over the course of the years, I've realized that there's this deep fundamental truth across all of our traditions of faith and conscience that I was encountering in that book, but you guys will have encountered through your own traditions in various ways. There's this single universal truth that's expressed in 1,000 different tongues, and it is simply this. It can be summarized in 3 words: all empires fall. All empires fall. Nothing that is taken by force is ever held. Nothing that is stolen through colonization is ever retained. All empires fall, which means that from the beginning they are doomed. So the first thing for us to understand about the moment that we are in is we are witnessing the collapse of American empire. We are in the extinction burst of American imperialism. As Jason pointed out, Gaza has peeled the scales off of the eyes for many to reveal what most of us in this room already understood, that American imperialism is the most dangerous weapon of surveillance and death that has ever existed in human history, right? Stretched across the planet, inflicting torment on humanity across the globe to extract resources for the benefit of a tiny few. But empire is, in point of fact, doomed. It is our job to kick it over the edge, to assist in its demise, to usher in something new. Because when you understand that all empires are doomed, then the most important preoccupation that we have is, what shall we build upon the ashes of empire? What kind of society and polity are Greens offering to the people? Most of our conversation today is going to be centered around that. Trump is doing a good, sorry, I'm in the chat. Trump is doing a good job destroying the US empire. Listen, those of us that were accused of being accelerationists by not endorsing the genocider, the co-genocider in chief Kamala Harris, were accused of hastening the demise by wanting to get Trump in power. Nobody wanted Trump in power. But if he is going to, continue to throw gasoline on flames and call himself a firefighter, there's not a lot we can do about that, right? We're going to have to offer the alternative, and the collapse of American empire was always inevitable. We offered them a lifeline, and not enough people took it. So where are we in this current moment where we see the collapse imminent? And Trump, by the way, Trump support is dwindling rapidly, even amongst his base. There is a massive collapse in the support for Trump, because what we're finding is that Gestapo police forces terrorizing communities, our tax dollars being sent to starve children and then shoot people when they come to collect food at aid points. And somebody posted this the other day, that there is no difference between telling people that you are going to give them a shower and then gassing them, and telling people that you are going to give them food and then shooting them. That's where we are in this late stage imperial capitalism. And we've seen, as Greens, the ecological consequences of this, especially here on the West Coast, with massive wildfires ripping through communities. And then Democrat power in my state, Gavin Newsom, PG&E was supposed to be responsible for almost $9 billion in damages for 480 fires that they were identified as having caused. Gavin Newsom made that debt go away with the stroke of a pen and put that right back onto taxpayers instead. We are seeing them facilitating every kind of ecological degradation, every kind of moral apathy and moral rot, no concern for our homeless population, which is expanding rapidly in this state. Instead, mountains of money poured into a poverty industrial complex, handed out to developers and NGOs instead of to the people that are actually suffering and hungry. Times could hardly be any darker than they are now. And sad as it is, unfortunate as it is, this is exactly the opportunity that the Green Party needs in order to make itself into a force in national politics, because more people than ever before are starting to realize the dead end that is the duopoly, the dead end that is these alternating flavors of genocide and extractive capitalism. You can either pick blue Kool-Aid or red Kool-Aid, and that's a Jonestown metaphor, because that shit'll kill you. And it was Malcolm that taught me that as well, right? Malcolm said that the liberal is a fox, bares its teeth, and you think that it's smiling at you, but you are on the menu. The conservative is a wolf. When it bares its teeth, it's into a vicious snarl that leaves the Negro with no illusion as to where he stands. What Malcolm said about the Black community in 1964 being caught between two predators that differ only in the modality of the hunt is clearly true of the American electorate, whatever their racial background in 2025. We've got a population that is caught between a liberal, neoliberal Democrat Party and a conservative party that has long since fled into overt fascism. So we are caught between foxes and wolves, one hunting by guile, the other by sheer force. And more than ever before, people want this alternative. 63% of voters in one poll, national poll, scientific poll, said that both parties do such a, quote, poor job that we need an independent third party. When data was basically reproduced in another poll that was broken down by voter registration, 70% of American independents said that we need that third party. 53% of registered Democrats said that we need that third party. And again, same language, such a poor job. Both parties do such a poor job. 48% of Republicans said the same. So half of the registered voters in each of those parties thinks that both parties are so bad that we need a third party. The time has never been more ripe for what the Greens are offering and what we can do to intervene in this political crisis that is the collapse of American imperialism. But frankly, one of the biggest problems that we have, and I alluded to this at the outset, is that we do not yet have a culture that has embraced victory. We have a culture that is well, let me put it this way. We have the best policies for working people, but we're not yet a working people's party. We have the best platform for Black liberation, reparations, transformation of the carceral state, but we're not a Black people's party. We have the best policies and platform to protect the Latino community and other immigrant communities that are having civil liberties violated and that are being kidnapped, but we are not yet a Latino party because we still have to do the work on the ground in order to build the relationships in those communities and in order to build up the political infrastructure that will be required for us to win. It is not enough to have the best platform. We have to build relationships and build the political infrastructure on the ground. And that is going to take work. That is going to take fundraising. But most importantly, it is actually going to take like a commitment and a belief that this is what the party must do in order to be victorious. And too much of what I've seen, and I'm just gonna be blunt about this, sorry, I'm not the one to blow smoke up people's behind in any kind of gathering, is that many of us are still unconvinced of our capacity to serve this role. Because we have internalized a couple of decades of defeat. We have internalized a kind of defeatist approach with respect to the duopoly. And this takes me back to another one of Malcolm's most profound lessons. He said a couple of things. I'm going to go through them one by one. First, he said, we are not outnumbered, we are outorganized. I'm going to come back to that one. We actually have the policies and the platforms and the positions, from ecological concerns to working class concerns to racial justice concerns. We are the best positioned to meet the needs of the people. Our constituents are out there and vastly outnumber our opposition. We are not outnumbered, we're outorganized. But then what Malcolm said from there is even more pertinent. He said, never let your enemy tell you how many of you there are. Never let the man that you are against form your opinions for you. And this is where I feel that internalized defeatist attitude, that we're happy just to be on the field, that we're happy to be a third party that has the best stances and the best positions, but hasn't actually believed that it's going to win elections and grow into that role of the most powerful opposition party. That's something that we need to address inside the culture. And we need to address it not just in our inner beings with a change of mindset, but in our practices and in the way that we build power in communities, the way that we recruit and empower candidates. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. So we're not outnumbered, we're outorganized, and we've got a lot of building to do. But to return to where we started, we're the ones that are best positioned to do it. We're not putting people through 16 months of indoctrination and training before we're allowed to speak publicly like PSL members are, right? For those of you that are close to PSL, you'll understand the allusion there. We have the most capacious structures. We have decentralized, democratic, representative dispositions hardwired into the party. We are well positioned to be receptive of new folks. But it's going to take a massive amount of work in order to start bringing new folks in, to get strong candidates on board, to support them in the ways that they need to be supported in order to run effective campaigns and to win. One of Malcolm's students, Kwame Ture, formerly Stokely Carmichael, he used a lot of Malcolm's theories and philosophies on organizing in the way that he did his own work in creating the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. And he used to say revolutionaries don't just mobilize around issues, revolutionaries organize against systems. Revolutionaries don't just mobilize around issues, revolutionaries organize against systems. We have mass mobilizations taking place now around police brutality, around Palestinian liberation, around abolishing ICE. Mass mobilization that is not being transformed into organization against the systems that are productive of all of those fundamental forms of oppression. We can become the instrument that performs that function. The Green Party should be the instrument that channels people's energy from mobilization around these specific issues into organization against the systems that are productive of all of these forms of injustice and inequality. We have that within our reach in this moment, but it is going to require effective campaign strategies. It is going to require solidarity, which has not always been easy to come by inside leftist movements. The last part, just to close and then open things for questions. I am firmly convinced that if we pay appropriate attention to fundraising, facilitating demographic change inside the party, and to building robust candidate rosters, we will absolutely be able to fulfill this role. But we will have to have done a great deal of this work over the next 2 years before the 2028 presidential electoral cycle if we are going to show any improvement in our overall national performance in 2028. And that means that the light is on us here on the West Coast, in California, in Washington, in Oregon, where the politics have been more progressive, more radical, more rooted in anti-capitalist critique. This is going to be the place where this movement is going to start. We are running our campaign in the state of California to serve as the tip of the spear, and I'm putting myself at your service, Oregon Pacific Greens, in whatever way I can to help reinforce your efforts to run effective candidates, to get visibility on your candidates and messaging, and likewise with the Washington Greens. Kshama, who's coming on later, we've already met between our two teams. We've done our, spit handshake to support one another, despite the fact that we're not, unified along party lines or necessarily on every issue, because solidarity is what it's going to take. So I am in your service and coming to you in service and offering just one kind of humble piece of counsel before we open up to the Q&A and the broader dialogue. For whatever you're doing in terms of building the infrastructure for effective elections in the state of Oregon, especially, but then also in Washington and other places, please do everything that you can to bring mutual aid and direct action into your organizational activities. Do not make this simply about electoral politics for people. And do not present people a kind of illusory view of the solution as one that is solely to be found in electoralism. Those Black radicals that I mentioned before all utilize electoral politics strategies. Malcolm in '64 gave a speech called The Ballot or the Bullet, and he talked about registering every single Black person in Harlem, not as a Democrat or as a Republican, but as an independent, because he understood the capacity to leverage political power. Kwame Ture said, of course, I don't think that the solution is just going to come through elections, but electoral politics are how I organize people. Huey P. Newton ran for Congress not once, but twice, not because that's the only way to transform things, but because political party organizing, when brought together with mutual aid and direct action, is capable of serving powerful movement purposes that will transform us into the party that when that inevitable fall of empire happens, we will be the one to reconstruct the alternatives. The Bolsheviks in 1917 were not a massively popular party in Russia. They had X number of registered people, but they were the party that was best positioned to direct things upon the collapse of the ancien regime, the old structure. What we need to do is to be building movement work and positioning ourselves as that real opposition party, because the empire is going to continue to fall and crumble around us. And if we are able to connect with communities and serve the mutual aid and direct action that they're already engaging in, rather than just showing up and asking for votes every few years the way Democrats and Republicans do, then they are going to start to believe that this Green Party is that vehicle, and we might start to believe it too. I'll stop there.
Jason, go ahead. I think you used your hand up. Oh, I got to unmute you. I just wanted to make sure that our speakers weren't interrupted.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that was my fault. I didn't realize I had gone that so long, so apologies.
No, it's all good. And so we might not have time for Q&A, but I do, Butch, I do want you to talk about specifically why this race in California is so important and how this can sort of galvanize the nationwide movement that we are going to be spearheading here. So
Sure,
if you could just
I could take, yeah, I'll say just a brief word about that. We've got a great opportunity in 2026 because of the primary in June. The last time in 2022, the second place finisher in the primary only got 17.7% of the vote, which was about 1.29 million votes in June of 2022. And they've set it up as a jungle primary. Only the top two candidates advance. If we are able to get just to that second position, then that is going to set up a runoff election between me and whoever that Democrat is, and it's likely going to be Kamala Harris. So from that point on, they will no longer be able to keep the Greens under a total media blackout. We will be able to get this messaging out, not just in the state of California, but that California gubernatorial election with two national political figures in it is going to draw media attention. That is going to raise the Greens' profile everywhere. That's the tip of the spear. And it is much closer than we believe, because it's really probably going to require about 1.5 million, maybe 2 million votes on June 2nd of 2026. So we are putting all of our efforts into working with those community organizers on the ground that already have engaged constituencies, because that's what worked with the Muslim community in the 2024 presidential election. We were able to get 53% of Muslims nationwide to vote for us, and only 20% for Team Blue, 20% for Team Red, because we had targeted messaging on the issue that was of most concern to the Muslim community, and they already had the established organizing and fundraising networks that once we were there showing up, committed to the thing that mattered most, those became Steinware voters, those became Green Party voters. If we are able to do even a fraction of that in the African American community, in the Latino community, getting to that 18-20% in June of next year is going to break the duopoly. And that is going to create a lot of space and political momentum for us to recruit and support strong candidates nationwide. Hey, Kshama.
Yeah, I think she can't respond right now. Because I put the mute settings on. But hey, I just want to jump in real quick and just say thank you so much for taking the time. Quick, my opinion, I love the direct action plus mutual aid plus electoral politics. I know I've been sort of spreading that same message, and that's what we've been trying to do here in Eugene. I agree with you. We need to build these relationships with different organizers in our communities. That's how we're going to grow. And I really appreciate you encouraging the membership to have a shift in mindset to one where we are pursuing victory. Like, we need to take the power, because really that's how we're going to make change in this country. Yeah, we're kind of out of time. I want to respect the schedule and respect that we invited Kshama to also share some words. We'll continue the theme of the day of solidarity with her, but thank you so much for being here, Butch. I appreciate it, Dr. Ware.
My pleasure. And sorry, I wish that I didn't quite calculate the time right. So pardon me for not leaving enough time for Q&A. But you guys can put my contact into the chat, and anybody who wants to hit me with questions anytime. And we also have our own social media platform, Revolutionary Learning Community. So you can also DM me there without Meta reading your messages and so forth. So maybe Jason can drop that into the chat. I'm going to stick around camera off to listen to Kshama's words, and then I've got to bounce into another meeting in a few minutes. But nice to see you, Kshama, and welcome into the space. And thank you, everybody, for the time and attention. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks. Yeah. I guess, we'll move to Kshama Sawant. For those of you who don't know, Kshama, my apologies. This is probably not the best introduction you've ever gotten, but I will do my best. I've been following Kshama's career for a while now. As you may know, she was an openly elected, or an open socialist, elected to city government in Seattle, who has received, was able to achieve several wins for the working class in Seattle. And now she is taking on the challenge of running a congressional campaign. Her organization is called Workers Strike Back. I think we share a lot of the same goals with Workers Strike Back. My apologies, Kshama, for not getting you the link sooner. I was at the coast yesterday. I thought I had sent it. Maybe because the coverage was spotty out there, that you didn't get it sooner. But thank you for joining us. We have Butch from California. You're in Washington. We're all obviously here in Oregon. So again, we really want to build that West Coast solidarity and working class movement. So I will pass it to you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Justin, and thank you everybody for allowing me to speak a little bit, and also hopefully there'll be time for a few questions and answers. Hello to Butch as well. I mean, we're talking about all of these things in the context of the Israeli state, which, with the full and unconditional backing of Western imperialism, has transformed Gaza into hell on earth. Now we're seeing just unprecedented levels of malnutrition and famine that is affecting the whole population there. And it's in this context that last week, even AOC voted no on the amendment to cut $500 million of US funding to the Israeli military. And it's in the same context in which she and other progressive Democrats have repeatedly said that Israel has a right to defend itself. Let's be clear, this is not defense, this is a Holocaust. Except for a small number of representatives like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, who voted for that amendment. Same goes for the rest of AOC's fellow, in my view, rotten, self-described progressives in the Democratic Party, who have also voted for Israeli military funding, including Pramila Jayapal and Ro Khanna. And to be clear, the $500 million would have prevented Iron Dome, Arrow, and David Sling funding. This is all part of the genocidal hardware of the Israeli state, which have allowed Israel to carry out slaughter in Gaza with impunity. And they've also enabled Israel to brutally attack Lebanon, Iran, Syria, and Yemen. These ongoing horrors would be impossible without the hundreds of billions of dollars of US military funding and the unconditional political backing from the US ruling class and its two parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. No politician who has voted to fund and is voting to fund this genocide deserves one more working class vote. But ending the genocide and the brutal occupation will require building a powerful anti-war movement to defeat the forces of US imperialism in order to win an end to all US military funding for Israel. Without that, this is not going to stop. That is the necessary first step, which means that we'll need mass strike action, mass protests, and mass civil disobedience. It also means elected leaders in the US Congress who will not only consistently vote against funding the genocide, but also use their office to mobilize an army of hundreds of thousands of working people to fight the Democratic and Republican parties, the Zionist lobby, and the billionaires profiting from war and genocide. So what we're seeing is that Democrats like AOC are doing none of this. Voting the right way is the lowest possible bar, and the progressive Democrats have repeatedly failed to even do that. Why? In a few moments of honesty, AOC has revealed how she, why she abandoned the promises she ran on in 2021 when she first failed to vote no on Iron Dome. She said that she backed down because she was subjected to quote unquote hateful targeting. And then 2 years ago, when she was asked again why progressive Democrats don't fight the Democratic establishment, she talked frankly about how, had she done that, it would have caused her quote unquote reputational and relational harm with the power brokers in her party. And it's true. The Democrats and Republicans will make your daily life hellish if you decide to defy the agenda of the ruling class. But here's the deal. There is absolutely no way not to sell out working class people unless you do stand up to the attacks against you, because you have to understand that the attacks against you are not about you. They are weapons against the working class. And it's not only the Democratic establishment who will use these weapons against you. It will also be, unfortunately, much of the labor leadership who follow the ideas of business unionism, which means that they prefer not to have an all-out fight with the bosses. They prefer to be tied to the Democratic Party, which is also one of the parties of the bosses. These pressures exist everywhere, whether you get elected to a city council or to a state legislature or to the US Congress, or if you get elected as a labor leader, or if you emerge as a leader of a social movement. Wherever there is potential for a mass of the working class to get organized and defeat the billionaires, there will be relentless attempts by the political establishment and their many gatekeepers to force the movement leaders to back down. So yes, it is our responsibility, those of us who are elected, to stand up to them. And the way you do it is precisely by mobilizing and organizing the mass of working people that is so feared, correctly so, by the ruling class. Now, the progressive Democrats have decided to make their own lives easier by making peace with the Democratic establishment. And it's not only that, they've decided to prioritize their own careers over the needs of the working class, the needs of society. And so by extension, they have also made peace with the capitalist class, who are the ones who are really calling the shots. The Democrats and Republicans are their political spokespeople. And so in this context, in my view, what we need urgently is a new mass party for the working class, that Workers Strike Back, the Green Party, all of us need to be part of. This is the discussion that we had at our organizing conference, inaugural on Fight the Rich conference in February this year, which had Chris Hedges and Jill Stein also speaking alongside me there, where we all agreed that this is a necessary first step, because the Democratic Party has never represented us. It has always been a party of the capitalists, but right now, with its backing for the horrors in Gaza, it has exposed itself much more so to a whole new generation of young people. And so this is a correct moment for us to fight for a new mass party. And we're seeing the developments in the UK, where a new party is starting to be launched. It's very early days, but this is very exciting. 500,000 people in the UK signing up to be members of this new party launched by Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn. This opening exists everywhere. What's missing is the leadership to actually achieve it. We need leadership that will talk about how we need to stop supporting the Democratic Party altogether. And what we need is to run independent candidates who are accountable to working people and who can actually build fighting campaigns and especially, fight to win as a step towards that new party. That is why I'm running as an anti-war, pro-worker candidate for the U.S. Congress. If elected, I will use my congressional office exactly as I used my city council office, Seattle City Council office, for a decade to build mass movements of working and young people to win victories. And the way we did that in City Hall is because we understood, and I understood, that as a socialist, my role on the Seattle City Council was not to engage in cordial caucusing with the Democrats, accept their pro-big business parameters, and keep peace with them. Instead, we understood that our responsibility was to go and disrupt politics as usual, the business as usual, and organize working people in the thousands and fight back against what otherwise is a one-sided class war against working people. And it is on that basis that we were able to win the highest minimum wage in the nation. We won the Amazon tax, which raises hundreds of millions of dollars every year for affordable housing, including dedicated funds to develop affordable housing for the historically Black district here, right here where I live in the Central District. And we won unprecedented renters' rights to make up really what is a bill of renters' rights, which is a lifeline for working class and poor families. And this is the approach I will use, as I said, if elected to U.S. Congress. I am running, as some of you may know, against warmongering Democrat Adam Smith. I am calling for an end to all U.S. military aid to Israel, an end to the occupations of Gaza and the West Bank, and I'm also calling for free healthcare for all funded by taxing the rich and national rent control. Adam Smith has voted again and again and again to send military aid to Israel during his nearly 3-decade tenure. He has fully backed the genocide to the tune of tens of billions of dollars. He has been an absolutely reliable servant of the Zionist lobby, so it's no coincidence that AIPAC was his #1 campaign donor last year, and he's also bankrolled by, you name it, whichever war and genocide profiteer you think of, he's bankrolled by them. Lockheed Martin, Palantir, also Elon Musk's SpaceX. He's bankrolled by all of these dystopian corporations. He has the blood on his hands of nearly 500,000 Palestinians already killed in this genocide. He has demonized anti-genocide activists as extremists and left-wing fascists and called for them to be arrested. So it is really, really crucial that we take this historic opportunity. It's actually our responsibility right now to fight to throw Adam Smith out of office. That is the absolute minimum price he should have to pay for his role in backing Israel to the hilt for nearly 3 decades. So I really urge everybody to join us, join our campaign at kshamasawant.org. Let's fight to win one position in Congress that can actually turn all of the politics in Washington, D.C. upside down, because that is exactly what we did here as well. We commandeered the city's political agenda, in the words of the Seattle Times, with one office. Why? Because we used that office to build mass movements. That is exactly the approach we need in the U.S. Congress as well.
Thank you, Kshama. Yes, I, I love the idea of, a campaign being sort of a hub for all of these movements that we're working on. I think you used some language on that in the past. We are like right on time, you all. If anyone would like to raise their hand, we might have time for like a question or two for Kshama before we have to move on with the program. I mean, there's so many great comments. We could probably talk to both of these people for the entire 2 hours, but we're trying to keep today's program sort of punchy and quick and move on. But I wanted to give everyone in the membership a chance to hear from these 2 leaders. So if you have a question for Kshama, please raise your hand, and if you are open to that, Kshama, we'll ask a question. I guess a question maybe I have for if Butch is still with us, I don't know if he is, but a challenge when you're an outsider, or if you're running a third-party campaign or an independent campaign, is sort of overcoming the media blackout. And so I guess I'm wondering, what are some of the strategies you're employing to get coverage from corporate media? Or I guess you don't necessarily have to be corporate media, but we know that corporate media often shuts us out and likes to pretend we don't exist, which makes the job even harder. So I was hoping maybe you could speak to some of the things you're doing to sort of overcome what has traditionally or historically been a bit of a media blackout for candidates like yourselves. Do I have to oh, I have to ask you to unmute, I'm sorry.
I'm happy to go, but since Butch needed to leave, he probably should go first.
I don't think Butch is in the call anymore.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. I think this is a very important question because, yes, as Justin said, exactly, and Jason is on this call. Jason knows both from the ongoing Butch campaign, but also from having been the campaign manager of Jill's campaign. We know, and I know from 10 years of over 10 years of work in Seattle that the corporate media does you no favors for the simple reason that they are also spokespeople for the capitalist class, for the ruling class, for the Democratic and Republican parties. It's not a neutral question for them. And so the way you overcome it actually is by taking action, meaning in 2013, just to give a concrete example quickly, I mean, we could say a lot about this, but to give a concrete example, in 2013, we were absolutely unknown factors. I mean, people literally laughed in my face, Democratic Party operatives laughed in my face saying, who do you think you are, you upstarts, you're nobodies, how could you even think of running? And the way we got media repeatedly over the course of the campaign was by showing up and fighting alongside people who were fighting for themselves, the taxi drivers, the rideshare drivers, the union members of different unions, including SEIU, where the leaders were hostile to us, but the rank and file supported us. So we went everywhere where we needed to show that we are in solidarity with ordinary people, with working class people, with union members, and we forced the corporate media to cover us. We also forced the corporate media to cover us precisely because of the demands we were running on. At that time, can you imagine, at that time, $15 an hour was considered utopian, and we were able to create real momentum around those demands precisely because they were so bold and they captured the imagination of working people, especially young people, and it made it impossible for the corporate media to ignore us. And even then, I'll just say lastly, even then they will do your best to ignore you. And when they do cover you, they will try to demonize you. We should not, actually, we should see that as a badge of honor. When they are forced to cover you and demonize you, that's a sign that they are absolutely unable to ignore you. And so really the best channel for all of this is to win over working class people to the fight, not by saying that this is my campaign, join me so I can get elected, but more, this is a campaign for all of us. You should join this so that we can win this, and this.
Thank you so much. All right, I think we're going to try to fit in a couple more since we have you here, if you don't mind. Todd, I'm going to ask you to unmute, and then Esme, you will go next, and we'll try to fit in a couple before we let you go, if you don't mind.
Thank you,
Todd,
Kshama, for showing up for this call here in Oregon. And loved your campaigns. I videoed, I think, 10 of them, your campaign and your victory parties, and especially 15 now. But it's on my YouTube channel. But I was going to ask, why do you think that it's necessary to have a new party, to create a new workers' party? And because among the alternatives, there are other existing parties that could be, already have ballot access and so forth. So what is your thinking? I'm really interested in that.
sorry, I had to ask her to unmute again. My apologies, but yes, go ahead.
No problem at all. Yeah, thank you, Todd, for that question. And this is something that we also discussed at the Fight the Rich or organizing conference alongside Jill and Chris Hedges, that it is important what the infrastructure that the Green Party has built, and especially with the ballot access. And in fact, as I said last year, and I've also said this year, that it was a terrible mistake, and partly out of sectarianism, partly out of complete misunderstanding of what it is to build the left, that the left didn't coalesce behind Jill's campaign. In our view, the best possible strategy to build the movement last year was for the left to unite around the strongest possible challenger against the Democrats and Republicans, and that was in reality Jill's campaign. So it was really a pity that there were other left campaigns running also, which didn't make any headway, but then ended up undermining the unified support for Jill's campaign. That's why in Worker Strike Back, we took a vote that, and we carried out the substance of the vote, which is putting all our energies into building the Jill Stein campaign as much as possible. In fact, we literally sent many of our members, including myself, actually both to the DNC in Chicago for a week and then to Dearborn for many weeks on end, because we wanted to build the left vote against Kamala Harris and Donald Trump in Dearborn, which was like it was the heart of the anti-war sentiment. And so in that sense, we think of ourselves, Worker Strike Back and the Green Party, as entities that should come together to build a new mass party. What we're talking about is not to replace any individual organization, but making the point that in order for the idea of a working class party to take root in the consciousness of the working class, we need a mass organization. And I don't think any of ours or our organizations is that organization. So it's not about replacing the Green Party, but it's also about creating something much wider, much broader, and much bigger than any of our individual organizations. And but having said that, I think the people to lead this way is amongst ourselves, because I don't expect the labor leadership to take the lead on this. We have to get organized ourselves and bring the rank and file of the labor movement to build such a mass party.
Thank you both. Good stuff. All right, Esme, we've got time for one more, I think. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Kshama, thank you so much for joining us, especially as a younger member of this party. As one of the younger members on the SCC, it's an honor to, be inspired and see somebody who's really done the hard work and put in this political action. I feel like two of the biggest critiques I see in the Green Party are, number one is sort of the just behind the scenes logistics and organizations planning. And number two is the lack of young people in the party, because a lot of our policies would directly, benefit young people in so many different ways. So I really have two questions for you. You can feel free to just answer one, but they kind of intersect in a way. Number one is how are you at Worker Strike Back, or how does your campaign plan to engage young people? And number two is in terms of during, before, and after the election, how do you plan on taking that support back to either Worker Strike Back or the Green Party? In other words, how do you plan on utilizing the resources that you've accrued over the election campaign, the election cycle, the volunteers, the donations to, support the parties that you're working on?
Yes, thank you, Esme, for that question. I mean, if you look at everything that we've done over the last year, I first got elected to Seattle City Council in 2013. That was our first city council campaign. And then after that, we won two other re-election campaigns. And then we won, in 2015 and 2019. And then again in 2021, we were forced to fight against a recall against, there was a recall attempt from corporate landlords, from, literally Trump supporting corporate landlords, from big business, from Amazon, all of these corporations, and the Democratic Party. They all banded together to in an attempt to recall me, and we defeated that as well. So in other words, when I left the city council in December 2023, I left undefeated after having won 4 elections. And what we did each time was we used each election campaign as a vehicle to build support for and momentum around concrete political demands. We don't, if you look at our campaign page and you compare them to Democrats, even progressive Democrats, you'll see that most of them, virtually all of them, are wishy-washy. I mean, Mamdani is a bit of an exception where he's relentlessly campaigning on specific demands. Most Democrats don't like to campaign on specific demands because they don't want to be held responsible for anything specific. They just want to talk from both sides of their mouth and get every working people to vote for them, and then go and sell them out when they are doing the bidding of big business. We don't do that at all. We run on very concrete demands. So in 2013, for example, our campaign was a vehicle to build support for $15 an hour, push back on the lies from big business. And in fact, after we won, the Seattle Times actually said, correctly so, that our election victory was a referendum on 15, because that's what people were voting for. People were voting for us because they were excited about fighting to win $15 an hour, taxing the rich, and rent control. Those were the three demands we brought forward. And then less than 6 months after I took office, we had won 15. And then we turned our attention to winning other things like the Amazon tax. And then so in 2019, for example, very prominently, we fought against Amazon. It was pitch battle, us socialists versus versus Amazon. That was how the battle was seen by everybody on all sides. And we defeated Amazon. And then in 2020, we won the Amazon tax. That's exactly the approach we're using here as well, where our campaign itself is a vehicle to build a movement. And absolutely, we are going to fight to win. But, we're not stupid. We don't go around giving guarantees that we're going to win. We're going to win only if our fight changes the balance of power against the Zionists, big business, the Democratic Party, all of whom are going to be rooting for Adam Smith. So we have to fight like hell to win. But the point is that win or lose, we are building this movement both to end the genocide and to build momentum towards ending the occupation, to really build the anti-war movement on a working class basis, and also to build momentum for the question of free healthcare for all funded by taxing the rich, and also national rent control. So if we win, we're going to take this fight to the US Congress. But even if we don't, we're going to take this fight to the US Congress regardless by building local fights. So for example, one of the things that Workers' Strike Back has voted for is to carry out a campaign, and that will be simultaneously next year, actually, with our congressional campaign next year, to fight for a ballot initiative in Seattle to win free healthcare for all, regardless of immigration status, regardless of gender status. Everybody gets free healthcare for every single need that they have, funded by taxing the rich. And in Seattle, we've already won the Amazon tax. So we're talking about increasing the Amazon tax to $5 billion to fund healthcare for everyone. So in other words, every election campaign for us is not an election to elect a person. Obviously, we want to fight to win the congressional seat. But alongside that, we are also building the movement. And to be clear, and this is the last thing I'll say, to be very clear, if we win the US congressional seat, the only way we are going to be able to fulfill our responsibilities, and my personal responsibilities as a Congress member, would precisely be to build that movement. So we don't see the two things, building the movement and winning the election. We don't see those two things as separate. They're actually intricately connected, and they go together.
That's awesome. I just want to thank you. I think it was worth it to kind of extend this conversation a little bit. I hope the membership doesn't mind. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know that you're busy running your campaign and organizing up in Washington. I wish you the best of luck. Ideally, you and I will see each other in Congress, right? In early 2027. That would be nice. But I wish you the best of luck. I support you. I think a lot of us down here support you. And thank you so much. I'm going to allow everyone to unmute themselves now. I'm going to switch that. I just didn't really want folks interrupting the speakers, even if it was accidental. 1 second. Okay, participants should now be allowed to unmute themselves. Kshama, thanks so much. Jason, thanks so much. One thing I forgot to do at the beginning of this meeting was to invite folks. Yes, if you have links you want to drop in there, your campaigns, if you have links you'd like to drop in the chat, please do. I'd like to invite everyone who's here to also let us know where you're calling in from in the chat. Let's hear where everyone is. I know I'm in Eugene. Josiah, you're in Dufour, right? Todd's in Eugene. But feel free in the chat to let us know where you're calling in from today. We'll build, and then we'll have a chance to chat here in a few minutes. All right, I want to give Amy an opportunity to talk. We want to support Butch's campaign. We want to support Steve's in Ashland. Awesome. Jason Corvallis. Thank you guys. Aaron, welcome. We want to support both of their campaigns, but we also need to some funds to support our candidates here in Oregon. So I'm going to give Amy a minute to just kind of talk about fundraising, and then we will move into the conversation.
Thank you, Justin. I hope everyone can hear me. This was just a little catchphrase Justin came up with. We're asking, can you assist us with $26 for 2026 A one-time donation of that size may not seem huge. However, if each registered green, which would be at least 8,000 people, could contribute that much, we'd have $208,000 in our coffers, which would be amazing. And if only half that many, 4,000 did so, I believe we'd still be around 100K. It's important because in this cycle, we would like to make sure we can materially support our Oregon candidates, as we were not able to do in 2024. Without going into huge detail, the PGP had a rough patch. We would like to grow our numbers, and that's one of the reasons we're struggling to raise funds. I was hoping Ken Adams, our longtime treasurer, would be here today, but he had other commitments. If I understood the little session I had with Justin earlier today, Justin, correct me if I'm wrong, we have 6 House congressional districts in need of a Green candidate to run. Justin himself is planning to run for one of those. And if we can get a good lineup, these folks will need all the help we can give. There are other local offices in cities and towns all over the state of Oregon, which will also need our support. It's possible we could field Senate candidates. There are nonpartisan races, and the PGP Nation Builder page, which I linked to, I believe also can go into some details. But the reason statewide races are so important here is that we need a certain percentage of total voters to vote Green in every election if we want to keep our ballot line. And some folks who follow people at the national level, like Howie Hawkins, probably know this, but state laws across the country are a hodgepodge, but almost always, once you lose a ballot line, it becomes extremely difficult to get it back. So it's important for us all to donate where we can and to vote Green wherever and whenever we can as well. And thanks for your time. I'll add that link again a couple of times for people who might have missed it. Thanks.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, we do need money to run this thing. So if anyone, yeah, $26 for 2026. Let's see if anyone can just chip in and do their small part. It would really add up.
Another thing, what would really help would be if there are actual attacks. As we get closer to election, there's always attacks by the Democratic Party against the Green Party. And any such attacks on our party in Oregon, we should just be hyper vigilant, and we should just go medieval on that and publicize that to embarrass the Democratic Party. And then the other thing that I'd like to see us really go medieval on are breakaway factions claiming to be the Green Party of Oregon.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, well, yeah, the theme of the day is solidarity, and I'm glad you all are here, and we're all here trying to build something, and let's all sort of like row in the same direction a little bit. I wanted to give a chance for Seth Woolley, our former secretary, to give us all a quick update on what's going on legislatively in our state. Just a quick 5 minutes. He's gonna share a few things, and then Jason Wright is with us. Jason, thank you for your patience. Jason has expressed some interest in running for governor, and so after Seth gives us a quick update, we're going to hear from Jason, and then after Jason, we will discuss finding other candidates. All right. Seth, if you want to go for it.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So one big thing that happened in the legislature was a couple years ago, we had successfully, well, just a little over a year ago, we successfully got the legislature to pass a campaign finance reform bill. This is the legislature had literally never done that in all of its existence. And so we have limits in place now after over a century. So we did that, and then so it was this grand bargain between labor and business to avoid our petition from getting on the ballot. So we did a kind of, it mostly, we were just about to get it on the ballot, but then the labor groups decided to work against our measure, and they put their own measure on the ballot, or they tried to put their own measure on the ballot, and they were competing with us petitioning. It was going to make our petitioning much more expensive. So we joined their grand bargain to get some limits whatsoever, any limits whatsoever. So we did that. And there was a very extended timeline for implementing that. And the Secretary of State had an interim Secretary of State because of the controversies and resignations at that level. That interim Secretary of State did not do anything to implement the measure. The incoming former State Treasurer, now Secretary of State, has worked together with members of both major parties at the state legislature to try to get it delayed 4 additional years, which they could do indefinitely if they wanted to. And we were able to get the Oregonian to say that they were going to run an editorial against it. We brought a mass number of people to the hearing, and it didn't even get out of committee, this attempt to delay it. They were claiming that they were too incompetent to build a website that would collect disclosure information and rewrite the existing system. Most other states just have paper forms that people fill out, but for some reason, there were lots of claims that they wouldn't be competent enough to do it because previous efforts at making a computer system have failed in Oregon. It was the weirdest argument I've ever seen in my life. And now that failed in the last legislature, there's going to be a special session coming up limited to transportation. But in next year's legislature, they may be bringing stuff up again. There are some minor issues in the bill that we want to fix, so there may be negotiations around that. We have been negotiating around some of those minor fixes in this past session, but they gotten that bill to try and mess with us and delay it by 4 years. So we're still fighting, we're still winning. Next week, I'm having another meeting with the Secretary of State's office on implementing this. So we're still going on that. That's the big focus we've been working on. And of course, we've submitted testimony on various other bills, but that's trying to save the win we got is the last session is a tough one.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And one of the reasons why I wanted you to give us this little update is because, often we get criticized for just showing up every 4 years. So this is a reminder that we are always working on something. And I really appreciate the members that dedicate time to trying to advance our platform in a legislative way, because that's kind of what it's all about. We all have a role to play in this, and so I appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions for Seth around any of that stuff that's going on?
I can also do an update on the city council as well, if we want that.
Yeah, and ultimately I would love to get sort of like I want to give people different ways to plug in committee work, whether that's you want to be involved in communications, helping with the website, writing emails, things like that, or if you want to be involved with more legislative stuff, or if you want to help us plan conventions. There's a lot of things that can be done and at various levels of time commitment. Some things only take a few minutes, but if you are so inspired you want to contribute more time, there's definitely things we could use help with. Third parties do not build themselves. Real people have to do the work. And so thank you for everyone who volunteers for the Pacific Green Party. All right. So let's get into the gubernatorial stuff. So I'll tell you all, I received emails from 3 different individuals already interested in running for governor of Oregon. Today, one of them was able to join us, Jason Wright. Jason, I will give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to the membership. Let us know what inspired you to want to run, maybe what some of the key issues are that are nearest and dearest to your heart, and what your vision is for Oregon.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very, very excited to be here. My name's Jason Wright, Wright as in the Wright brothers. No, I'm not related. I'm 39, I'll be 40 in March, right around the filing deadline time. let's see, I was born and raised in Gold Country down in California. Got a long list of experiences from business formation, culinary arts, everything from head chef down to stocking the fridge as a burrito boy. I've done low positions, I've done unpaid positions, I've done very high paying positions. I've got a fairly good understanding of economics, both micro and macro, as well as global, which isn't really so pertinent for a state contest, but I had started a business entity down in California. Really, so some of you might know the Cal-Exit movement, the movement for California to become its own independent country again. Hi. That was me. Been involved very, very deeply with that for, wow, is that 9 years, up until a hostile business takeover just a couple months ago. I was the leader of the whole thing for the last few years. Under that leadership, we actually saw the movement grow to roughly 10 million or so openly supporting independence. Roughly 24 million registered voters of California, so nearly half of California's voters were down with what I had to say, like the ideas, like the direction, and were actually responsive and, doing the things that I was requesting, like, 4th of July, don't fly the American flag, fly the California flag only. And all over California, that happened. And it wasn't just individual homes, there were businesses that partook in it too. As someone who has managed campaigns in California, let me just throw it out there. I've been a Green since 18. The only time I changed from the Green Party was so I could vote for Senator Sanders one time. Other than that, all Green. Occasionally, down in California for small local seats, I would vote for a Dem or a Republican or an independent or whoever, if they were actually good. For me, it's not about party, it's about policy. It's about the people. I feel that not just Oregon, California, Washington, the United States as a whole, I feel has failed the people. The people, in by and large, en masse, are suffering, and we have been for a long time. And our government says, okay, well, we're going to cut a lot of this gross overspending, which we all know it's at the Pentagon. But what did they go for first? USAID, food stamps, Medicare, veterans benefits. Blech. That disgusted me. I am not a veteran, but I am from a long line of people who have served honorably in this country as well as overseas. I do not take their commitment lightly, because I know that they did not make that commitment lightly. I know enough people who have served to know that those words are never said with, half heart. Partly because you're giving an oath to use your life, if necessary, to defend everyone else. And I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. Representative from Washington. She had stated that sorry. She had stated that Israel says that it needs to defend itself, but that's very clearly offensive action, not defense. And I wholeheartedly agree. It's very clear when you're on a playground who the bully is and who the victim is. And I know I don't need to really, stand up on top of the mountain and shout, because we're all pretty much on the same page here as far as Palestinian right to self-determination. Throwing that out there, I would also put out that I am known to be one of the world's leading experts on the fundamental human right to self-determination as defined by the United Nations Entrance Charter, which is an international treaty. The way that the rule of law goes here in the United States is that first and foremost come treaties and trade deals, then come the sacred founding documents of the United States, like the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, stuff like that. And like presidential decrees are even like below that. So first and foremost is treaties and trade deals. The UN Entrance Charter is an international treaty. That means that the United States, having signed it, being part of it, one of the founding members no less, that means that they agree to uphold the fundamental human right to freedom. And we've witnessed for at least my lifetime, nearly 40 years, that Demopublicans, Republicrats, they don't care about that. It's almost as if they don't even know that any of that exists, which I wouldn't be too surprised. I would still be appalled, but I wouldn't be too surprised to find out that a lot of these inept leaders don't actually know the law as well as they should in order to be civic leaders.
Jason, I'm gonna we got 1 minute. I'm just gonna do my best to keep us on schedule, but if you could just give us like your last minute of closing comments, we would appreciate it.
Okay, yeah. So all of my background and introduction aside, I want to help Oregon. I was a medical cannabis patient down in California for many years because of, PTSD. I've seen both the do's and the don'ts, the goods and the bads. And when I moved up here a few years ago, I realized that, one, the full legalization or decriminalization of drugs, not really a smart move, fentanyl. But also the, LaMota scandals, which includes the current governor, Tina Kotek. She had a LaMota fundraiser alongside, set up by that person who had to resign because of their corruption charges. But I would like to fix all of these problems that I have been seeing. The roadways are in dire need of repair. Like, ODOT is being grossly underfunded from what it should have. We're putting a lot of funding, state funding, into all sorts of frivolous little things rather than just conquer these few big issues: education, healthcare, transportation, infrastructure, local and state economy. Those 5 things, if we repair those 5 things, Oregon will be great. It'll allow for any administration that comes along in the future to be able to say, hey, I see this tiny little problem that needs one tiny little tweak. Let's do that. And they can get it done rather than make a 3-year uphill battle in the state, like, it's kind of ridiculous to me seeing how effective Oregon's leadership could be for its people it's frustrating to me to see the amount of ineptitude, gross ineptitude. And I think a lot of that has to do with not having the greatest candidates up there. We're constantly in the United States forced to pick between, one terrible choice or another and trying to decide which one is worse than the other so that we know who to vote for.
Amen. Well, I think that's a great segue into the conversation that's coming up. And why I wanted to invite you is because 2026 is going to be here before we know it. And so I appreciate you getting out in front of things and, getting a campaign organized early. I think the earlier the better for all of our campaigns. So, I mean, we're not going to have a Q&A for our candidates at this time. We're going to have another convention in the winter like we always do. So that will be like in January or February of next year. And but I just wanted for our membership to know that you're interested, for one, to get your name out there. And I appreciate it because we really need candidates. We really need people stepping up to run for office. Going back to what Butch said, like we got to start thinking about a winning mindset. So, yeah, I appreciate you being here. I welcome you to stick around for the conversation. We're doing pretty good, everybody. It's 12:35, and the plan was to start this membership convo at 12:30. So we're just a little bit over, but that's okay. I would like to let's do a stack. Raise your hand, maybe. Let's just try to have it somewhat orderly. But I'd like to invite anyone to share your thoughts on where are we going to find candidates for 2026? How are we going to recruit them? What are our strategies for finding these candidates? What are we looking for in a candidate? What are some lessons maybe from the past that we want to make sure that we don't repeat some of the same mistakes, those things. It looks like we have, if maybe Amy and James, if you could help me with the stack, I'd appreciate it. It looks like Todd, you have your hand up, and I will give you the floor. James, or yeah, Jason, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time and for being patient with us today.
Yeah, thanks. That was great. So my ideas, I probably repeated this many times, but I think here in Eugene, the best thing that we could do to build visibility and attract participation would be to have at least occasional big public events down at the at the Federal Building or at Kesey Square. And by big, I mean anything where you can get 15 or 20 people is a success, in my opinion. But especially when you start giving smoke and good speeches, then we can push that out on social media. We can put it on YouTube. So that's my number one suggestion. And then the number two suggestion would be, why not meet every Saturday morning at Theo's, like they used to do for the Bernie campaign. What was the name of that? Can't remember the name of their group.
Our Revolution folks.
Right. ORLC. And that was awesome. And James Barber actually was running for some public office at the time. So yeah, they managed to get 20, 25 people every week. And it built connections among people. Enough said.
Yeah, I mean, we do like a Eugene chapter once a month thing on Saturdays at Theo's. It's hard for me to make it every Saturday, but also I want Greens to feel empowered to get together and I don't need to organize every meeting, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing prohibiting Greens anywhere from getting together in twos and threes and doing stuff. I don't want y'all to feel like you can't do that. We're decentralized, as Butch mentioned earlier, we're not going to force you to go through 2 months of training before we let you speak for I mean, we have certain spokespeople, right? Official spokespeople, but I want you to feel empowered to be activists. And I know you are. I see you out there all the time, Todd. Anyone else have some thoughts? I mean, I think one of the things, I'll interject while maybe some of y'all get some ideas together, but I've been speaking with Steve Shapiro, who's on the call, and Ashland. Josiah and I have been talking about engaging those folks that are already registered Greens. We have over 8,000 right now. I would love it for it to be more, but that's a decent start. We have like 250 some thousand registered greens across the country, and we know there's some states where you can't even register to be a green. So, I mean, it's much more than that. Like, if we're talking about building a movement, we've got to start here. We've already got a good start. So, but I think one of the things I'm going to do is, quite frankly, start knocking on doors, because, that's what has enabled the Sawant campaigns to be successful. They get out, they knock on doors, they meet people, like Butch talked about. We got to build relationships. And it shouldn't be that intimidating, given the fact that the people I'm going to knock on are already registered greens. So they shouldn't be like, what are you doing here, right? I'm hoping they would be receptive to the idea. So, that's one of the things that I would like to do, and hope, maybe, who knows, maybe one of the fruits that comes out of that is someone somewhere stepping up to want to run for office, because those people are hard to find. Steve, you've got your hand up. Go for it.
Yeah, Jason, Justin had sent me the list of registered green people in Southern Oregon, and I created a letter and texted it out to people. I hand delivered it to those in my neighborhood. I got one person to respond. I'm now thinking that creating a flyer to put on the billboards around, seeing if we can reach other people that are not registered, because I'm not getting response from the registered people.
How long has it been since you tried to reach out to them? I mean, some people, it just takes them a while.
I did it last week, all last week.
Okay. All right. Well,
Hours and hours.
Yeah, I appreciate that effort. I think, yes, thank you so much. It's always a challenge. It's a challenge to get people up off the couch involved. We want to talk about, or, stew about the loss of our democracy. But if you want democracy, you have to participate in it. I don't know what else to say, So this idea, like, again, third parties don't just build themselves. And the movement, if we're going to get any momentum going for this thing, we got to get more people involved. I appreciate everyone who's here today. It's a start. I'm hoping we can share this. The idea is we show folks that we're doing things. It's going to make people more inclined to get involved. I was a psychology major. I view a lot of things a lot of times through that lens. And I can tell you that, based on observations, and I don't know, I didn't look at the studies per se, but I think you can tell that people typically want to get involved with things that they already see other people getting involved with, right? So in order to do that, we have to create the perception that we're doing things, and that there's some enthusiasm, there's some energy, there's some excitement here, which is one of the reasons why I invited Butch and Kshama to be here, is because those campaigns have some buzz and have some excitement behind them. And I think we need to try to capitalize on that, and remind people that we're here to, to advance these same things that Kshama and Butch have been talking about. Michael, welcome. I'm glad you made it. I think hopefully the move to the coast has treated you well. Yeah, we've got some longtime folks here, and we've got some new folks. My parents have joined this meeting today to see what's going on. There's Kathy and Ed. And then like, to Esme's point, though, we need to get a little bit younger. I mean, retirees typically have more time on their hands. It's a lot of times why the most politically involved segment of our population is retirees. But we need to find a way to, involve folks from all walks of life. I don't know. I've paid a visit to like the mosque here, and I may go back there. I mean, the other criticism is, I mean, we're a very white party, but also this is a very white state. There just aren't that many people here statistically who aren't white. So, but we can't just be a white person's party that has a couple, you know, people of color. So how do we engage the Black activists in our community? How do we engage the Latino activists in our community, the Muslim activists? Like, we have to get out of our bubble, I think, is another thing. Feel free to chime in.
Well, I just have a little personal experience report. I take a walk every day for about half an hour, 45 minutes. And so I came up with the idea that I would start carrying this sign around. You know, you guys can see my screen, but so I carry this sign around since I'm on my walk anyway. And what's really amazing is the numbers of reactions that you get from the cars. And there's a honk, of course, once in a while. But what's really interesting, if you walk facing the traffic and walk right into the traffic, you know, on a busy street like Hilliard, there are many drivers that give you a wave and they give you a furtive, you know, agreement and or a nod even, you know, and it's quite encouraging, and it shows that people are politically aware and that they do have a conscience. And really, what we're looking for are those people with a conscience, because materially, Americans are reasonably well off. I mean, let's not deny that, especially here in Eugene. And this contributes to the attitude of complacency. What we're looking for is people who care about the other guy, because we're already okay. All right, you know, I got enough to eat. So that's my feedback, is that if you're out there and you're active, then you're going to get a lot of connection with people, and it proves that they are not asleep. They are not asleep.
Yeah. But I guess one of the challenges is like that's like a one issue thing though, right? And like what Butch was talking about with Kwame Ture, how do we turn like one issue mobilizations into organizing? Because in my view, it's the system is creating the conditions that makes these, you know, injustices possible.
Well, what you want to do is to sell them on the idea that the Green Party is their best avenue for political expression.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the idea, right? I mean, the idea is that we are the electoral arm of this movement, that we give people a voice in electoral politics so that we don't have to be doing as much mutual aid all the time, as like we're constantly playing defense against the system that is punishing people. But if we rise up together, we go on offense. I think that's when we win. Otherwise, as long as the oppressors are in power, we're going to have oppression. At some point, we have to remove these people from power. But we need people to run for office. So talk to your friends, you know, encourage people. I never thought I was going to run for office, y'all. This was not a personal ambition of mine. It wasn't. Until I was involved in the student encampment at the University of Oregon, and I was frustrated at us getting nowhere, did I decide someone needed to run against our incumbent that was funding Israel. I looked around, I didn't see anybody else doing it, so I stepped up to run. I'm just some guy. Butch is just some guy. Kshama is just some gal who have decided at some point that enough is enough, and they decided that they're going to step up and run for office and try to make some change. And so I want you all to feel like you can be that person. We're all just some person. Go ahead, Todd.
Well, as I was saying in the chat, I think it's a promising strategy to try to reach out to existing people who have been outspoken on various issues, you know, LGBTQ, Black Lives Matter, environment. There are some very powerful silos here in Eugene, and they all have some fairly charismatic and effective speakers. So I would suggest that we try to approach them one by one and try to get see if we can get them to run for office as a Green.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've offered our ballot line to DSA, to PSL. PSL has their own, I don't really fully understand their electoral strategy. Like they kind of have one foot in it, but not really. I haven't had a full conversation with her about how they see it, and I don't know if they're all going to agree on how they see it. But yes, I hear you. There are some dynamic speakers. A lot of them are in that PSL group.
Like, what about Cameron? I mean, she can really speak
Yeah.
extremely clearly, and she's quite a when people gather around, they don't walk
Oh,
away,
she's
right? When I talk,
she's
you can hear this chair scraping and people getting out their phones and stuff. But when Cameron speaks, everybody listens.
she's amazing. Like it's incredible and she's young. I mean, she's like 25 or something. I don't know how old, but very young, but very smart, very well spoken, and very enthusiastic. I think Cameron, at some point, if she wanted to, would be a great candidate. But you know what? Like, you don't even have to run as Greens. Like, we need like coalitions too, and we need activists running like the Butch model. I had this conversation in the chat the other day here locally. Like, people like, you're not going to vote your way out of this. Well, we're not going to mutual aid our way out of this. We're not going to donate our way out of this. I could donate to Gazans until I'm broke and have $0 into my name, but as long as the underlying structures and system is in place that oppresses them, that oppression will always continue. And then we're just all going broke trying to help people. We need to change the system. That's what has to happen. So direct aid plus, mutual aid plus direct action plus electoral politics. We need all three. Those of us that are trying to be electoral arm, we can't only do that, I don't think. I think we need to be out in the community, walking the walk, helping those people navigate this currently broken system, and let them know that in parallel, while we're helping folks navigate the broken system, we're trying to build a better system to replace it. But how are these activists going to listen to us and believe in us if we're not out there shoulder to shoulder with them? We have to build credibility, right? Otherwise, they're going to see us as just another opportunistic politician that's just trying to make way, right? That we're not genuine. And I think we're all here genuine. Everyone here is, I think, genuine. But the perception is, there's a lot of the people that can most help us are the people that have a lot of times have checked out, right? The people most aligned with our way of thinking are folks that have given up on the electoral system because they said it hasn't worked for them. So how do we encourage them to be in solidarity with us? Well, first we have to be in solidarity with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Justin. I want to say, Michael Sunlightner here, I greatly appreciate your last comments. And that's all spot on. We need to walk our talk. And to me, the most foundational building block is relationships. And that means relationships within ourselves, within the Green Party. We need to heal. We need to be united. We need to go where people are. For example, here in Seaside, there's one Catholic church. There's one Mass that is Spanish speaking. My wife is Catholic. We attend Mass, and we intentionally at times go to the Spanish Mass. This is not strategic. This is simply to build relationships. We want to meet people that are not simply white or graybeards, as you say. And as you meet people and you get to know them personally, solidarity will come, and it will be genuine. And if you stand on the picket line with the Providence healthcare nurses, as I did here in the Seaside, they know that you're with them.
they are more likely to be with you when you need the solidarity to run a campaign. I'm not running a campaign. I'll consult. My 8 years on the PCC board were sufficient. I replaced myself with someone who's 26 years old, and I think a better person for that position than I was. That's our mindset. But do let us heal ourselves. Do let the Green Party become more united, as we want to be united more with others. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
No, it's a great contribution. Thank you, Michael. And yeah, I want us to be united too. Like, you know, geographically, we've got representation in the state coordinating committee from Defer to Corvallis. Steve's working on bringing people into the fold in Ashland. We've been talking with folks in Roseburg. Yeah, we need to get people across the state connected and support each other. You know, support the events that the Lynn Benton Greens are doing, support the stuff that the Eugene Greens are doing, support the stuff the Portland Greens are doing, and encourage other areas to form their own chapters. You guys only need 5 people to form a chapter, and that may not seem like, well, what does that do? I formed a chapter, it's only 5 people. It's momentum.
That's a lot.
Yeah, but it's momentum, yes. So like it's if we could go to the public and say we went from 3 chapters in 2025 to 6, if we could add like a coastal chapter, Michael, or a Roseburg chapter, Southern Oregon chapter, and Eastern Oregon chapter, that demonstrates the membership and the broader public that there's some energy here, that we're growing something, you know. But yes, I'm glad you're out there on the picket line with the nurses. That's the kind of stuff we need to be doing. And, you know, and honestly, like the faith-based, you know, I'm not a super religious person. I was raised Catholic, but it's not I haven't carried it into my adulthood. But we know that churches in the civil rights movement were, you know, key players, right? I mean, these are people that think about their conscience all the time, you would, you know, in theory at least, right? And what it means to be doing the right thing in this world. So I think if we can engage some of our faith groups in this movement, that would be smart too. We have like 3 minutes left. I hope this was worth everyone's time. I really made an effort to bring us engaging speakers, give the membership an opportunity to talk to one another. Can we improve? I'm sure we can. We can always improve. Send me an email if you have ideas of thoughts you want us or want the state coordinating committee to do, ways the committee can help you locally do things you're trying to do. Like we provided, for instance, Steve Shapiro a list of the registered greens in his area so that he could reach out to them. So just things like that. That's what the coordinating committee is supposed to be doing. It's supposed to be there to help you organize at your local level, because it's not going to be top down, but we can help you be bottom up.
Before we leave, I put in the chat a link to the document that I created that I've been sending out to people if people want to access it, change it around. I'm probably going to change it around again and generalize it for not just people who are registered, but for anybody. So
yeah, that's great.
You're welcome to share it and update it yourself.
I guess that's another good point. And I'll say this, one of the things that I've been working on, and Steve has been chipping in, and Esme's been chipping in, and a lot of people have been chipping in, is we're trying to build this resource thing like within our Google Drive. So if you have an event, you want to print a sign, you can just go there and we'll have some materials there available for you to help you organize so you don't have to invent everything from scratch.
Can you put that link in the chat?
Yeah, I'll follow up. So I'm going to send a follow-up email to sort of like, hey, thank you all for being here. we'll include some resources in there, and then I also need you all to vote. This is just like our internal workings. We need to have a vote on when our next convention is going to be. So that'll be in an email. I'm going to ask you all to weigh in on that, probably sometime in January or February of next year. But doesn't mean we can't do anything between now and then. We definitely do need to be doing stuff between now and then. But yeah, stuff like the thing that Steve wrote, you know, that if you want, like, I don't want to have to write something new. Maybe I can take what Steve wrote and share it with the people in my area. Things like that. So let's share resources, I guess, is what I'm saying. Because we've got, you know, I'm working at sort of a top level, just like I'm trying to organize and inspire. Hopefully, I'm not in the nuts and bolts of the legislation like Seth and some other people are. We all have our role to play. And the more of us there are, the easier it's going to be. All right, y'all. Unless anyone has any closing comments, Josiah, Amy.
I just want to thank the folks who turned out. Justin, thank you for busting a move to get us all together. I'm sorry we didn't have 100 people, but I'm glad we had some folks who had so many valuable contributions to make. I appreciate you all, whether you're new or old.
I second Amy's sentiments. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, y'all. And the link, this will be recorded, so if you have folks that didn't get a chance to be here in this 2-hour window, we'll share the recording with them.
Will that
All right.
be on will that be on YouTube eventually?
Yeah, well, we lost access to our YouTube channel, so Connor's working on spinning up a new one for us.
Oh, great. That's good to know because I wasn't sure.
Yeah. That's one of the problems when someone leaves the organization and all the login information was with them, when we lose access to that resource. So that's something that we're working on internally so that these things endure change in leadership or, you know, involvement so that we don't get stuck. But that's why we can't use the last one.
Okay.
So we're kind of stuck.
The Illinois Green Party has a really good YouTube channel, and they post, I think, at least twice a week. They interview people. It's really good.
Yeah, David Reich, I've been on his show. David Reich does that all the time. We don't have a podcast or an interview show, but it is a good place for us to share speeches, share things like today's meeting. And who knows, maybe we'll get an excited volunteer that wants to do an Oregon version of that Illinois thing. That would be cool too. All right. I think we're trending in the right direction though. I mean, it's been very positive last 6-8 months. I feel like we're all getting along and hopefully that continues. We should get along. We all are like-minded and we all sort of share the same goal and views for the most part. So we should like each other. Right?
Yeah, it's important. If there's one thing I've learned in my time being on the steering committee, this is my second go round. Someone else took over the post I had for a while, but now I'm back. You have to walk a fine line between standing up for yourself, but also checking your ego as necessary. It's a hard thing to learn, but some of us are doing our best.
Yep. We've got to prioritize the movement, which is why I'm not gatekeeping Kshama, even though she's not agreeing. It's part of the movement, right? We got to be in solidarity with one another around that. Let's just get a thumbs up on adjourning. I will mention I am going to be next week is the national convention.
Annual national meeting.
Back to back. So I didn't want to message that too much because I didn't want to confuse folks and I wanted people here. So we will start messaging about that national convention this week. I've been invited to be part of a Green Congressional Campaign Committee spotlight with 5 other congressional candidates from other places in the country, Hawaii, California, some other places. So we'll be promoting that event as part of the week of the annual national meeting, the ANM. You can attend, I think, for free. You can always get, I think they ask for you to pay for, but you can always just get a waiver if you don't want to pay the fee. But yeah, if you're interested in what's going on nationally,
is there still time to register for it? I'm not sure. I know I just registered about 2-3 weeks ago.
I think so. Just go to Green Party US website and it should be easily available there. But I will send some emails out. Problem is, when I email every prospect or every supporter we have, that's 900 some emails. That's not that many. And then prospects, that's another 500 people. We have 8,000 members, but we're not really reaching all of them. It's part of the problem. That's why we kind of need to knock on doors and ask people face to face, can you give me your email address? So that we can keep them in the loop of what's going on. All right. Thumbs up. Are we adjourned? Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you.
Thank
Talk
you.
to you. Talk to you soon.
Yep, great start. Thanks.
Thank
Be
you.
good.